Alright, fun episode ahead. Before we get started, I want to give a huge shout out to my guy Rylan Styles. This episode would not be possible without him. Go check out his work at Locked on Thunder, Thunderous Intentions on Fansided, and on Twitter at Rylan_Styles. Next up in the Heat Check series is Amen Thompson of the City Reapers in the Overtime Elite. He is likely the toughest evaluation of a prospect I have ever had. His situation and his skill set is just incredibly difficult to assess, but I will do my best. He's a point guard forward hybrid standing at 6'7", 209 pounds. Through 16 regular season games with the City Reapers, he averaged 16.4 points, 5.9 rebounds and assists, 2.3 steals, and nearly a block on 57, 25, 66 splits. He is a bit on the older side, he'll be over 20 on draft night. Here's how Heat Check works. I will identify one NBA draft prospect and grade what I believe to be their 5 most generally important skills regarding the NBA. Scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, athleticism, and overall feel for the game. Since no two prospects are alike, I'll grade a few additional areas specific to that player deemed the swing skills. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart, with ranges from cold all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score that will have absolutely no bearing or real-world effect on said player whatsoever. Athletically, Amen Thompson is the best I personally have ever scouted. Full stop, bar none, he's the best in the class and an absolute one-of-one athlete. He gets a scorching grade from me. The first thing to touch on here is his first step. It is absolutely electric, and it's going to be the building block for all of his offense moving forward. He can go from 0 to 60 immediately and has insane acceleration and deceleration. I have absolutely no worry he'll be able to generate paint touches at will. His first step is generational. He's explosive, but herky-jerky too. He's got that similar uncanny start and stop style of driving, but can couple it with his buoyant leaping as a play finisher. He's got a jetpack attached with a reported 44-inch vertical and showcases it all the time in game. Once he's actually at the rim, he has that contortionist-esque body control, avoiding and finishing around, through, and even over contact. Thompson's athleticism is one of the primary reasons he's getting these looks in the top 3 of the 2023 draft. It's masterful stuff and simply unteachable. Scoring 16.4 points per game in the OTE, but more importantly showcasing tremendous future upside as a go-to scoring option, Amen Thompson has earned a hot scoring grade from me. From now until the end of his career, Amen is going to make his money and be at his best by getting to the rim, utilizing the earlier referenced first step to get there, and using aeronautic verticality, acrobatical body control, and cushiony touch to finish. Amen's verticality allows him to leap for dunks off one or both feet, and he needs in the minimum just one step to do so. He also has great touch off the glass, understanding his positioning and utilizing spin to the highest degree. Despite that, it didn't totally translate to elite level finishing in the OTE, and it certainly didn't translate to floaters, runners, and especially shooting the ball. In his 25 full games, he finished 61% at the rim, a fine mark, but he shot just 55% on layups, perhaps sometimes getting a little too fanciful with his finishing. And his at-rim number saw a huge dip in the half court, as many prospects do, but it can be cause for concern. A work in progress is putting Thompson's jump shooting and outside game in pretty mild terms. We'll get more into that later, but the short and quick is that it is an extremely constraining aspect of his game. With all of that being said, I really struggle to see any sort of off-ball role for Amen Thompson. There simply aren't many guards with legitimate roles in the NBA who can't shoot the ball to some degree. His passing, which we'll get into later, drastically increases his on-ball and half-court ability, but that's not necessarily going to help him without the ball in his hands. So overall, there are worries, but similarly to his overall profile, he's got one or two few skills that can really draw you back in, namely his tight handle, lightning quick driving, and finishing touch. If he can manage to tune and fix certain aspects of his game, the ones that are really going to hamper his versatility as a scorer, you've got yourself a muscle car. I'm feeling warm on Amen Thompson's defense. With his length and athleticism, he's got every tool in his arsenal to become a great defensive player in the NBA. For the most part, I think he has a great care factor on that end of the floor, and he does a great job of utilizing his length and athleticism to earn stocks. He's got active hands, uses his insane acceleration to jump passing lanes, which he's very attentive of, and he can turn steals into transition offense with ease. He is sneakily quick to disrupt lanes. I do think the NBA is going to hit him like a freight train in this regard, like the rest of his game out the jump. Going from OTE competition where you can gamble significantly more to the world's best is going to be a steep learning curve. Plus, if he is a lead handler, most of his energy will be exerted to that, similarly to any other lead handler. But if he cares, can utilize his athleticism, and has the tools, I like the upside. On to passing and playmaking, I've given Amen a scorching grade. This is the other skill alongside his athleticism that has the potential to make him a feared weapon with the ball in hands. I came into the scouting report thinking he was an above average passer, somewhere within the top 10 of the class. I left thinking he is probably the best passer in the entire class. He averaged 5.9 assists to 3.2 turnovers during the OTE regular season and ramped that production up to 9.2 in 5 playoff games. Passing the ball is really where his quick-fire collapsibility of defenses comes into play. And this is also one of those things that I think is going to be the most translatable from the OTE to the NBA, if not more with the increased skill level from his own teammates too, and the spacing, etc. The first two things that jumped out to me are the velocity and accuracy with which Thompson passes. Look at the zip and placement on some of these. Whether it's simple stuff in the pick and roll, lobs, or cross-court darts, he does such a great job of honing in on the shooting pocket and can absolutely hum the rock. He's a surprisingly great decision maker when passing and playmaking, and is constantly looking and able to get his teammates involved. Almost to the point I would call him pass first, especially with little scoring options outside of the paint. He is both manipulative and uber creative. Thompson is good in the pick and roll, loves looking ahead in transition, and has the power to get it there often. He likes to go to the overhead pass, but he's great at one-handed passes and can do so ambidextrously. When you couple his great passing attributes with the fact he'll theoretically be able to teleport to the paint whenever he wants, that makes him a dangerous player, somehow regardless of a jump shot. In terms of unquantifiable feel for the game, I've given Thompson a grade of hot. Going too deep into this after just diving into his passing would be a little redundant, but the ease at which he's able to make some of the plays he does is pretty incredible. NBA competition is going to drastically speed the game up for Amen, so there's always a little bit of worry that we'll see significantly less of these wow-type plays in the future, but I think his amalgamation of athleticism, fluidity, touch at the rim, and passing chops makes him a high-field player who'll be able to bite more and more of the NBA off so he can eventually thrive. It might just take a bit. Alright, moment of truth, onto the swing skill, Thompson's shooting, which has earned my first cold grade of this entire cycle. Keep in mind, I've only done the top 15 or so players, so there would be plenty more cold grades to go around with the lower ranked players in this class, the late firsts, the seconds, but it is a truly hampering skill for Amen. In the regular season, Thompson hit on 25% on 2.7 threes attempted per game, and while he boosted that to 30% on 4 attempts per game in the playoffs, there's been few indicators that he's going to be a consistent shooter in the near future or potentially ever. He shot 27% on all catch and shoot shots in the OTE, 33% on a low amount of dribble jumpers. Now there are a ton of factors that go into a player's shooting. I can't touch on all of them in this video, but I'll touch on a few and go into why I think his upside is a little bit dreary. Firstly, his motion, despite already being improved upon in a short time, is flat out bad. His base isn't stable, it's wildly inconsistent, it feels like he has very little synergy throughout, and he flicks at the top of his release. And the numbers don't back it up at all. There's times when we can look past funky forms to the numbers and make educated guesses on whether they'll stay consistent, a la LaMelo Ball or Tyrese Halliburton. But bad numbers and bad form can typically be a pretty telling sign. Outside of the NBA, there's always a case to be made that he wouldn't have adequate spacing in his league, but that's moot too with the way he was guarded in the back half of the season. Thompson simply wasn't a true outside threat, so the opposition sagged heavily, went under every single screen, and refused to even close out at times, leaving him wide open. It might have seen a small increase in his numbers, but bad misses, which I've said before I look for closely when evaluating shooting, were still rampant. Wild misses, to me, signify that he's aiming at a much larger target or in a general direction than really honing in on the ring, and that can be a major issue if we're only that far along at 20 and some change. The lack of a jumper or even solid shooting form are legitimate worries. I tried to find some ways to justify it by looking at other hyper-athletic non-shooters. Ja Morant, Russell Westbrook, Anthony Edwards, they've all got a potent enough jump shot that their defenders couldn't sag off the way that Amen's did, and if they know he's primarily trying to get to the paint, it is going to significantly alter his versatility as a scorer and passer. Now, it's not inconceivable that he becomes a league average shooter. I think even a solid 32% from beyond the arc on decent volume would be just fine, and we've seen much crazier things happen. But if that takes years and he's limited in that pivotal developmental time due to that, it could start to snowball. The grade. I've given Amen an overall grade of 8.8, which safely makes him a top 5 pick in this draft, but he kind of comes with a caveat. The intangibles and the upside are everything. Most simply, he can access these parts of the game that most others can't, and at times that's going to make him untenable. But there are some serious holes to his game that honestly are going to require a ton of time and developmental reps, and they still might not ever come around. I have a really hard time seeing how Amen is going to succeed outside of a high usage top option role, so his fit, situation, and development are going to be absolutely pivotal. Quite honestly, I'm very on the fence about Thompson's outlook in general. He's not going to be able to just let loose like a Victor Wembanyama and told to just go be great. Thompson is going to require teaching, discipline, and tons of patience, but it could have a massive payoff in the end. I'm not totally sold that all the teams near the top of the lottery are ready and willing to offer those things for him, but I'm hoping he finds a landing spot that does, and from everything that's been said about him and his brother's work ethic and character, he might just end up an NBA star anyway. That's it for this one. Let me know what you think of Amen Thompson, a really tough evaluation, what you grade him, where you draft him, and drop who you want to see in the next heat check. We'll see you later.